In this reality, myths exist. So these are magical beings who once saved humanity during World War II. But instead of gratitude, they were shunned and forced back into the shadows.
There are tales of rogues and halls, of stratagems and wars. There's a tale for every season of the year. There are tales of knights and queens, of drudgery and dreams. There's a tale for everybody here. There are stories galore, in volumes by the score, on every subject throughout history. It's all waiting in Pandora's library.
Welcome to February's episode of Pandora's Library, a monthly podcast about books that feature the mysterious, fantastical, dark, and creepy elements of life. If you found the show as an audio podcast, you might like to know that you can also watch it as a visual podcast on Spotify and YouTube. My name is Karen Hamilton-Vile. I'm a paranormal murder mystery author of a series of books about Ada Baker, a medium who solves murders with the aid of the ghosts she lives with. This month, I'm interviewing dystopian fantasy author Roxan Burley about her Equal Rise series. Her fantasy world meshes seamlessly into the real world and is set in a sort of alternate version of London where mythological creatures are real and have found ways to blend into the human world. She spent her childhood lost in the world of magic and the possibilities it could create. And she finally put pen to paper despite the challenge of being dyslexic with her debut adult novel, Bloodstream of Moonlight, in her Equal Rise series. Roxanne, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Karen.
So this is our first time chatting face-to-face. We met through Lexi DeLorme, who I interviewed previously on the pod. And I recently read, I have to say, most of your Equal Rise book, the first book, Bloodstream of Moonlight. I'm 80% through. But I've had a good, insight into what it's like. But can you introduce our listeners to your Equal Rise novels?
Of course I can. The Equal Rise series is a dystopian London where an organisation called the Dark have seized power, enslaving humanity through a deadly virus. The goal is simply to take the capital, dismantle the government and wipe out all the military and police and leave the world defenceless. In this reality, myths exist. So these are magical beings who once saved humanity during World War II. But instead of gratitude, they were shunned and forced back into the shadows. The Dark exploit that hatred, capturing myths to harvest their magic and strength. So book one, Bloodstream of Moonlight, introduces Eira, who's a half-elven, half-human doctor hiding from them and working as a doctor in the capital. Everything unravels when a rebel captain called Cole Hawkins arrives into her clinic dying from the virus. Eira accidentally cures him using a necklace left by her mother, a woman who was assassinated by the Dark. That moment sparks everything, so Cole must decide whether he can trust a stranger with her own secrets. Eira is forced out of hiding, and together they must unite as they now have targets on their back. Then Oren is thrown into the mix. He's a warrior who's also a hybrid, part gargoyle, part elf. He's powerful, dangerous, and he's hunting Eira following the surge of power from her necklace. But Oren isn't the villain. He's carrying his own scars, and his arrival forces all three of them to question who the real enemy is. What begins as survival quickly turns into an alliance and then into the first sparks of rebellion that could change everything. So the series is multi-perspective, so the story unfolds through the clashing viewpoints of them three main characters. You can sort of see their hidden motives, their sort of shifting loyalties. I would say the trending tropes for my series are found families, fated mates. There's a slow burn romance between Eira and Cole. A sacrifice for the greater good is a big thing throughout the series, and acceptance for what you are.
Fantastic. I have to say, Oren was one of my favourite characters.
Thanks.
Really unexpected, in a fantasy novel. You describe the novel as a dystopian fantasy. But I feel it could arguably perhaps fit into some other categories as well, such as urban fantasy, magical realism. And as authors, we're often asked to pigeonhole our books. I know I was, what are you? And then you have to really sit and think, don't you? Well, I don't know, what is my book about? But why did you choose dystopian fantasy as the label for your books?
So when I first wrote Equal Rise, I didn't set out with a specific genre in mind. I just wanted to tell a fantasy story grounded in reality, something fresh and different. That was my main goal for this. So over time, as you said, I've had to pick a genre, and I think it does have elements of everything. So urban fantasy, magical realism. I leant towards a dystopian because I think it's one of the most popular genres, and I think people can understand it a little bit more than when you say, oh, it's urban fantasy or magical realism. And also because the whole series is set through a rebellion, that again leads very much to the dystopian genre, I feel.
And which of your characters would you most like to have as a best friend, and why?
So obviously, I like my three main characters. They've become much of part of the family. I think I like my girls, they talk about them non-stop. But the one I would love to have as my best friend is a character which appears in my second book, Bond of Eternity, who fast becomes Eira's best friend. He's a kitchen, so he's a fox shifter called Valco. He's a bit of a rogue. He's a flirt. He's a bounty hunter who has some twisted morals and a tragic past. But he's loyal and he becomes a fundamental player in the series. So he I would have as my best friend, I think.
Brilliant. And which of their abilities would you most like to have? Because they have all sorts of abilities between them, don't they?
Yeah, so I think if I'm going up against the dark and going up against this enemy, I would have probably Orin and Eira's connections. So they are joined by something called a bloodstream, which allows them to share power and to talk telepathically with one another. As hybrids, they're both incredibly powerful. So Eira with her healing magic, and then Orin can turn invisible. He's got moonlight power. So I think to them, I would definitely would like their connection. But their high power comes with their morals, so they're quite they don't like killing for the sake of it. I think that was very clear in my book. Like, as a doctor, Eira saves lives, but she has the ability to also use her power to take lives, and that again is a big arc for all of my series as such.
I think I would probably love the healing power. I always seem to write characters, or in games I create characters that have healing powers and things, so I think that would probably be my favourite thing to do.
Yeah, but you don't see it that much in books, I don't think, hence why I wanted to do something a bit different. And like I said, she had that morals, that her powers are there to save life, not to end them.
I'd signed the Hippocratic Oath, I suppose, do no harm and all that sort of thing, yeah. So your characters are fighting against an oppressive system. Did any real life events inspire you?
Nothing inspired me directly. I needed a conflict with high stakes where the characters weren't just fighting for themselves, but for everyone. And as the series goes on, they're thrown into this leadership role, and Eira's there as like someone to unite all the races, as her mum did. So I kind of that's the concept I used. But I took inspiration from such films as like The Matrix. So if you think my dark agents are very much like the men in suits with the sunglasses, but instead of them having a mind, I made my agents mindless infiltrators. And I think that makes them even scarier than having an enemy with a clear focus, a clear motive. The humans are enslaved themselves by this virus. They're victims too, caught between this war which is developing as the books go on.
So have your books been compared to any particular books, films, writer's style, anything? They sometimes in their comments readers put things.
There's been a few that they have compared it to, like Savage Lands. I can't remember
know.
the author. Like it's hard to compare because not many
Mm.
fantasy books are actually set in reality. So you know, I've compared it to a few myself, but I think you just have to read it and make your own conclusions.
Yeah, I had all sorts of strange comparisons in mind, like you say, to things you've never even heard of sometimes.
Yeah.
And I had Agatha Christie, like a paranormal Poirot on mine, which I quite like.
I like one of my favourite quotes is that it was like a Grey's Anatomy in a worn, torn London, and
I
I've
like
used
that.
that quote a lot. I really like that.
That is a really good quote. Yeah. Because it
Yeah.
starts out, doesn't it, in the hospital, in
Yes,
the
very
clinic.
much
So
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
So on your website, you have a question for readers. What would you do against the dark? So against these evil forces. I'd like to turn that question around and ask you, what would you, Roxanne, do against the dark?
Well, I think it's in my nature. I'd obviously fight. I don't think I'd sit by and let this evil take over. But I think, as my characters have done, I would do it quite strategically, gather allies, you know, try and see if I could get a plan in place. I don't know if I would quite take the risks that my characters take, because I do throw them into the deep end in all of my books. I think I might be maybe one of the ones that sits on the sideline a little bit more, again, because that was in my nature. But yeah, I would definitely fight back.
It's really hard to know, isn't it?
Yeah.
My grandfather in World War One, he got like medals for bravery and stuff, and the things he did, and I'm like, I don't know if I could do that.
I don't know.
But
I think
you don't know, do you, till you're in that situation, what
I
you
was just
might
to say,
do.
until you're in that situation, you don't know what you would do, would you? But I think it's in my nature that I would stand firm.
So the main characters in your books have traits that mean they don't fit in with the human world around them. Was this inspired by any experiences in your own life?
Very much so. I'm afraid I would say that school wasn't an easy one for me, and bullying told me that I was different, you know, because of the most smallest of things. You know, from having the curly hair I've got or the spots on your face. You know, because I've got dyslexia, I'm dyspraxic, you know, I wasn't fitting into a crowd. I think my peers put me down more than they helped me. And it wasn't until I actually started to accept who I was that I actually found that I didn't need to fit into a box. And this resonates especially with Oren because he's different in his clan, in appearance, in power. He hates himself at the beginning of book one, and it's not until he finds acceptance, like with Eira and Cole, that he starts accepting who he is. And I think I've used that from my personal experience really in his arc throughout the book, to shape who he is from that experience.
I think a lot of people could relate to that, couldn't they? I mean, a lot of
I think
people have gone
so.
through experiences, like you say, at school. I mean, because I was always, believe it or not, the shyest child in school. And now I
I
stand up in
was
front of
too.
people and talk to the public, and I can't believe it sometimes. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's very relatable. Do you use dyslexic friendly fonts in any of your books? Because one of my previous podcast guests, Fanny, was telling me all about this font that she used. So is that something that you do?
It's something that I haven't really looked into, and I know Fanny quite well, from the
Oh, do
various
you?
events.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah,
It's a small world, isn't it?
yeah, it sure is a small world. I think I've gone for like the maximum font size in my books. I've gone for a size 12, and I do quite wide margins, so there's a lot of white around it. But the trouble is my books are really chunky. I mean, they're really
Right.
fat. If I went for anything like bigger, I think it just would double the print. And sort of make it like, you know, to print them would make it quite hard.
It means a lot to me because my godson is dyslexic, and he's still quite young. But yeah, something I want to definitely do something about in my books. My books are, I don't know if you see them behind. They're a little bit thinner. They're only like that thick or something. So yeah, I might try it
Might
sometime
look into it.
myself.
Yeah.
And I also want to do large print books for older adults that can't read as well.
Yes.
But it's just the time fitting all this in, isn't it? And creating it, and yeah, it's hard, isn't it? You are an indie author, aren't you? I'm getting that right.
Yes. Yeah.
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 Um, You obviously enjoy writing about magical, fantastical creatures and characters woven into the world we inhabit, as do I. I guess some of my influences were like Neil Gaiman's books, like Neverwhere, which your book reminded me of in some ways,
Yeah.
like this secret world beneath London.
Beneath London, yeah.
And even TV shows like Being Human, Ghosts, etc. Even Rent a Ghost, somebody compared my book to, which is something I watched when I was young. And not everybody's going to remember that because that was quite a while ago now. But what was your inspiration for setting fantasy within a real world setting?
So my main influence in terms of authors were authors such as Lanny Taylor, her series called Daughter of Smoke and Bone, which is based in reality and is the clash of two races, so angels and demons. That was one of my main real inspirations. Another one was Deborah Harkness's book, A Discovery of Witches. I don't know if you've read that one. So that's like a witch, werewolves, demons in Oxford. That's quite a romance story. And then much of my influence has come from, I suppose, films, such movies as X-Men, where their experimentation and prosecution of the mutants. To be fair, I draw inspiration from everywhere and it just sort of gets mashed together.
Oh, yeah, same, I think. Inspiration comes from strange places as well
It
sometimes,
does,
doesn't
yeah.
it? Yeah. So you design your own book covers. Can you explain your process in doing this? What sort of tech do you use? Have you had training? And is it something anybody could do?
So my real job is I'm an interior designer. So I'm trained in such software as Photoshop and Illustrator. And I've always drawn as a child and young adult. I am quite a good illustrator. So the one for Bloodstream of Moonlight, I had this very clear idea in my head that I wanted like Eira's face with all her hair sort of coming down. And it was just a combination of, so this bit's sort of drawn and then I've layered it all together on Photoshop, using different textures and elements. And then, I've had to carry the style through. And my third book, Oren's on the front of this one, and this one was one of the most hardest one to do because he doesn't look like anything in reality, I would say. So, it was just technique and trying a few ideas out. I would say that if anyone could persevere doing it, they could probably do their own book cover. But I suppose I had the skills in the first place, and like I do all my artwork for all my social medias as well, and it's part of the process I really love doing. And sometimes when I'm writing, if I can't like visualize the place in my head, I will sketch out like a design of what it looks like, and then it will help me write it that way. So yeah, I use my drawing ability to help to influence my writing.
I keep looking at Procreate lately.
Yeah,
That app,
that's a good way
it
to
looks really
start.
good.
Yeah.
Because I got my GCSE in A-level art and I went to art college for a while,
Lovely.
but I haven't really done a lot with it. But I want to do a children's sort of Christmas fantasy book, which probably sounds a bit odd, but
Brilliant.
it needs lots of illustration. So I'm thinking I might have a go myself to
Give it a
see
go.
if
Yeah.
I can bring it back from somewhere in the depths of my learning. What is your best advice for someone who has an idea for a novel but hasn't yet put pen to paper?
So I would say stop stressing about it and just write. I know it's quite a blunt thing to say, but that's how I have grown as an author, is just by continuously writing and reading. It's also helped finding like a writing group, sort of finding someone who understands what it is to be an author. So I have a good one that I go to once a month, and it's resulted in some sort of, some really good friends who I now do book events with. And it's having that support as a community, because I think being a writer, as you feel, could be quite isolating, can't it? So I think if you can find that community, people that can support you, I think that's a huge thing to sort of have as such.
Because sometimes you're just too close to your writing, aren't you?
You are.
And
Yeah.
you just need that different viewpoint. My friend Helen, who I interviewed in my first podcast, she's been brilliant at that for me. She sees it from a completely different perspective that I never thought of. So yeah, I can imagine that'd be really good. Has it
Yes.
got a name, your writing group? Is it one that anyone can join, or?
It's actually really local. So we actually physically go and meet, which again, I think helps. So, it's the Bobby Tracy writing group. It's just in a village local to us. And, we've got like a WhatsApp group. We help each other and we just basically, go and write in a room for 2 hours. It's quite fun.
I'm in a WhatsApp writing group too. But yeah, it's a good idea. So you use a copy editor for your writing, as do I, but good ones aren't cheap. So why do you feel it's important as an indie writer to use a copy editor?
I think it's invaluable, especially from someone who is dyslexic. I wanted to invest sort of getting a really good copy editor just for someone who can pick up on all the mistakes you don't see, because you might write, I don't know, 3 or 4 drafts and you become blind to it, don't you? Blind to your own mistakes, and having a fresh set of eyes really does improve things, I believe. It took me a long time to find the correct editor because I wanted someone who did fantasy, who understood like about world building and quite complex characters. And I also wanted to choose, for some reason, an editor who was down in Devon, who was local to me. So my copy editor has actually become a really good friend of mine, and I'll give her a shout out. She's called Becky, and she runs an editing company called Opal Grove Editing, which her skill is super for helping sort of the fantasy authors. And I think she also does horror and thrillers, sort of them sort of type of genres as well.
I know Richard was very useful because, especially on my first book, when I was just like, I just went, oh, here's something I've written,
yeah,
do something with it, and he found all sorts of things. A lot of my spelling errors. Apparently, I'm really bad at hyphenated words and things. But also, when it came to the second book, he picked up some mistake between the first book and the second book. He said, but in the first book, you said this, and he'd remember that from the first book, but he missed, he finds, so many errors and things. It's really, really useful.
Useful, definitely.
And you just want to make the best impression you can with your book, can't you? You don't want people to be distracted by typos and
errors.
things.
I mean, there's still, I have a few readers that go, oh, there's a few errors here, there's a few errors there. But I think that's what makes an indie book, because, you can't, we haven't got, a potless money that we can't then keep proofreading it and having it edited. And I like when people go, oh, there's a little mistake there, because then I feel it's mine. I've put so much time and effort into it to bring it to life, that I still feel that it's quite personal, my books, every time they sort of go out there.
They're your little book babies, aren't they?
Yeah.
All your characters,
the
almost like your little children in a way.
Yeah.
So from the first chapter of your book, I was thinking, oh, this writer spent a lot of time planning and editing the book, because every sentence felt carefully planned and added to the storyline. I often thought you used the perfect word to describe things, and the world felt rich and believable. I could imagine it existing, beneath the world I know. So it's very inventive as well. And how long did you spend planning your world and writing your books?
So when I first started to write, I heard 2 words. I don't know if you've heard these, Karen. Either you're a planner or you're a pantser. And naturally, I'm a planner in real life. I'm so organised. I love to be in control. But it wasn't until I actually started to writing that I learned that I'm actually a pantser. So I discover the story as I write. The one thing that I spent a lot of time doing in depth was my character development, sort of setting all their backstories. And I think because I don't have just one main character, I've got 3. They all needed to be fleshed out as if they were real. So Bloodstream of Moonlight took me, I think, 5 months to write, like really intensive writing. And I wrote it during COVID, I think, like most people have done.
Yeah.
It was over 200,000 words. I mean, it was a hefty manuscript. And that it got again, because of Becky, my copy editor, she said, oh, why didn't you break this bit off, put it in the second one? So again, her advice really worked well with that. And then I spent about, I think, a year editing it, proofreading it, developing it. And I write books back to back. So I wrote, as I was editing Bloodstream, I was writing Bond of Eternity. And I think I was even like kind of writing in advance, like my third book. So I'm a kind of a breadcrumb author. So I like it, all the series to have drops that, you know, people can follow, like, because I'm quite a twisty plot writer as well. And it was easier to write them in a batch, because if like something changed, I could tweak it to the wider plot. So yeah, that's how I tend to write as such.
I like that phrase, breadcrumb author. I've never heard that before.
I don't know if I just made it up, maybe.
I'm a bit of I call myself a plantzer, because I write a paragraph of a plan, and then a lot of it, like you say, I'm sort of seat of the pants really, and a lot of it gets changed. Even by the end of the book, sometimes I've changed who the murderer is or something. I'm like,
Oh wow!
Actually, I think that works better, and then I'll change it.
I think it does. I mean, as I've sort of gone on now and writing, like I've got a few new series that I've got in the pipeline that I write them in acts. So like I write the first act, sort of start planning the second act, and then go back and start editing as I go. Again, I don't know what that's referred to or if that's even a technique, but I find that has started to work quite well for me as such.
I'm just thinking, actually, I'm curious as well, because certainly myself, and I think other writers have said that, you know, sometimes the characters feel more, and that the inspiration comes from, I don't know, almost somewhere else, like that. Yes. You're just kind of channeling whatever it is, the story. Did you ever feel like that?
Yes, very much. You almost think like your characters are talking to you in your head. And again, it's another phrase when author friends of mine said, oh, you know, my character, he did this and it's changed the outcome. I didn't know until I actually wrote that. And I remember this clear. I was in my writing group and I just went like this, because one of my characters had done something. I just had written it and it had changed the whole outcome of my story, but for the better. And it was like I had to stop, refocus and change it all just because that one character didn't fit where I was trying to put her, which was quite fun to experience. I mean, do you get that when you write your stories?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Something all writers must face, unfortunately, is criticism. So how do you take readers' criticisms and turn them around into inspirations to improve your writing?
So I'm naturally quite a positive person, and I secretly think everyone can improve. And I kind of always take criticism as a positive. I mean, sometimes it's hard, but I think you just have to take it in face value that not everyone's going to enjoy your book or your writing style, but if you can find your community, your tribe, the ones who support you, I think that's what matters. So when I first released like Bloodstream, I was very much looking every day on Goodreads at the reviews coming in, because it was exciting, you know. It was a big step. It was the first book I'd ever put out there. But now I think I'm a bit more laid back about it, that I don't watch the reviews as much. If I get a bit of a negative one, I kind of shrug it off these days, because I've got enough positive reviews to make the negative ones not hurt so much.
Yeah. I think that's good advice. I think I'm starting to move into that direction as well. I haven't checked my reviews for a long time now. I used to check them sort of religiously every week. What new ones have I heard? But now it's like, oh, well, I just leave it for the moment, and maybe I'll go back and look at some point.
Yes, yeah.
So finally, where can listeners find you online, and where can they meet you in person in 2026?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and TikTok with my author handle, which is Roxan Burley Author. I've also got my website, which is the same. And I've already started to book my events for like the first quarter of the year. So I'm staying local to Devon for the moment, and I'm doing the Creed cons in Exeter, Plymouth and Bristol. And I'm also being part of a romancy event for local authors in Exeter Library in February, which is going to be quite fun.
Do you find they're good places to sell?
So at the Comic Cons I do quite well. So I did 7 last year. And my aim this year is to do a big MCM one. Maybe like the Birmingham one. The London ones I would like to maybe get to the following years. But again, it's the expense, isn't it, to go into these big cities and that. So locally, I do quite well at these events, which is nice because instead of like, having a screen in front of you, you're actually physically talking to your readers. You're just seeing their reaction when they see your front cover or your blurb. And I've enjoyed that a lot more as an indie author than sort of doing the socials online as such.
Do you have any advice on how to arrange your stall? Because I went to like a small event last year, and MJ Larry, who I interviewed before, her stall looked fabulous, and she had like little notes on what you could find within each book, and she had all the paraphernalia as well, like bookmarks and things to give away.
Yes.
Do you have any particular advice for people?
I would always make it quite clear. So I have mine set out like in the order and always have them stood up, because I find if they're there for you to approach, always have your prices quite clear, because people don't like to ask. So one of my best I learned it, I think, on my second event is that I just got little chalkboards which said the offers, and people don't even ask, they just sort of buy them, and that's a really easy way. I have little curiosities on my table, like I have like the London map that I've designed in my first book, so that I can talk to them about it, point out the type of locations within my books. It's sort of visual aids, I think, is a really good thing. Anything to engage sort of your readers as such.
I sort of found recently ago, so I was offering a discount on both books, but people were quite reticent sometimes to buy both books until they know what you're like, whether they like you. So I've decided to give discounts on the first book to get them to buy it, and then hopefully carry on buying more books afterwards.
I find it in two ways. I either find at events people buy the whole series, because I always do that as a bundle, or like you said, they do buy the first one. And then it's nice because sometimes I see, so I've done events twice and then I see them coming back. Like when my third one came out, they bought the third one because they'd read the first two. So when I can, I try and sell them as a series, because I think it's always nice that they then have the complete package there.
It's nice that you've got all 3 books finished now. I mean, is that the end of the series, the third book?
I've got a 4th one to come, so there's one more, which I'm delaying for a year because I have written 2 other series. And at the moment on social media, I'm doing a bit of a poll on what should I publish this year, as sort of a bit of a campaign to get people more engaged. So I've gone into, I've got a paranormal thriller and a monster romance.
Oh, okay.
So I'm trying a few different avenues, and my goal this year is to release one of them, and then I would do the 4th one for equal rise after that as such. I'm just having fun, just trying different things.
That's the best way, I think, yeah. Well, thank you very much, Roxanne, for talking to us. And for everybody listening, we'll see you next time on the podcast. Bye.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me.
There are stories galore in volumes by the score on every subject throughout history. It's all waiting in Pandora's library.